So, welcome to Community Scoop, the podcast where we dive into the stories of people shaping Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. I'm Vincent Moulden.
And I'm Jared Littmann. And today's guest is Elder Charles James Jr.
Senior.
I don't know why I said that. I knew that. I knew better. And of his many titles, he's a spiritual leader, a Gulf War veteran, husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, son, brother, and a product of Annapolis' historic Fourth Ward.
Raised by a strong mother and grounded in faith, Elder Charles's life has been one of service to his country, to his community, and to his family. From surviving the trauma of war to advocating for justice and repair for his neighborhood, his story is one of resilience, responsibility, and redemption.
Elder Charles, we're honored to have you here as our guest today. We're going to start with our questions. I'll start with an easy one.
Yes.
Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. Do you have enough time to hear a little bit about me?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I am native Annapolitan, as was already said. I am a proud father of 6 daughters, 2 sons, too many grandkids and great-grandkids to number, and I am also a super proud person of my military service and the things that I've done in the past. That's just a little bit about me.
Wonderful.
So you were born and raised in the old Fourth Ward. Can you paint the picture of what your neighborhood was like? What was it like for you as a kid?
I was born and raised in the city of Annapolis. I actually was born on Lafayette Avenue, and my mother later moved us to the old Fourth Ward when we were very young. The neighborhood was extremely self-sufficient. From my point of view, we actually didn't have to leave out of the old Fourth Ward at all if we didn't want to. We had the stores, we had the banks, we had the hotels, we had places to entertain ourselves, basketball courts. There was just so much there in the old Fourth Ward that we really didn't have to leave there. When growing up there, I had so many friends that we just sort of gelled together and supported one another.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that were there that owned businesses and stuff, as children we knew, and they knew us, and they watched out for us. So, you know, the old Fourth Ward is really near and dear to my heart, and I often go back there, even though it's changed, just to keep me grounded and remember what I went through and what I did there and how much it meant to me. And I try to tell my grandchildren about it too. Every now and then, you know, the younger generations, you know, they say, oh, but every now and then I will try to convince some of my grandchildren to go over there with me so I can say, I used to live there. I used to live there. And another thing that I remember about the old Fourth Ward is College Creek, where the midshipmen rode down there. We used to be able to go down there at points and crab and fish. And so it's a lot to remember. I probably, if I thought about it, could go on and on for hours about the old Fourth Ward if I dissected, you know, different parts of it.
Yeah.
But that's just a synopsis of what I remember about it.
So for those who aren't familiar with what happened to the old Fourth Ward, can you describe where it was and what happened?
Yes, so the old Fourth Ward is located in, they call it downtown Annapolis, I call it uptown Annapolis. And it's on West Washington Street, Clay Street, Calvert Street, that area. If you're familiar with where the Arundel Center is, it's in that area. And if you're familiar where the senior citizen center is, no, the senior building is down off of Clay Street, and the old Adams Park School is, it's located in that area. Just to backtrack a little bit, I remember very vividly the city jail where the county executive building is. I remember very vividly as a kid, we could walk down Clay Street towards Calvert Street and we could hear the inmates in there calling out to us and saying things to us, not negatively, just, you know, waving or talking to us. So, you know, it's a lot of rich history in the old Fourth Ward. We had Susie's Tea Room, which was located right across from where the Arundel Center is now. Miss Catherine Gray's crab cakes, she was an entrepreneur that we used to buy little crab cakes in a little brown paper bag, and people that may see this or know this might remember that Miss Catherine Gray's signature, you had one of her crab cakes because she had a little brown paper bag and there was a little grease stain on it. So that's just some of the things about the old Fourth Ward and where it's located. It's a rich, rich area that need not to be forgotten.
What do you think was lost physically and emotionally when urban renewal displaced that community?
Great.
Community, the community that was a family. We all knew each other, from the Browns family to the Snowden family, the James family. All the families knew everyone, and we would sort of look out for each other. That was lost. I think generational wealth was a big thing that was lost, very big thing, because a lot of these people had their own homes, and that was taken away from them, they had to go to other areas. They had to move there and start to rent. So the homes that they had that were theirs, they had to start doling out money. So a lot of generational wealth was lost, and I think a lot of trust was lost. And not that we had a great deal of trust in government and so forth, but the little bit that we did have, I think that was just thrown out the window.
Sure.
Yeah. So I heard you mention taking your grandchildren back to the old Fourth Ward and
Yes.
pointing out where you lived. But what's something you want the younger generation to know about it and carry with them as they move forward?
Well, something that I try to always tell them is that, if you stick together as a community and as a family, you can always make it. You're going to have difficulty. Let's be realistic about this. Life is not going to be a bunch of roses and peaches and cream. You're going to have some trials, and you're going to have some tribulation. You're going to have some issues that's going to test your faith.
Yeah.
And so I try to tell them, let's just stay in it for the long haul. Make sure that you stick together as a family unit and support one another. We don't have a whole lot of time to be putting each other down and making things negative. If we want to survive, we need to help each other, and that means that's across the board. I teach that to my children, but I also try to live that with the community that I live in. I am a strong, and I will say this over and over again, I'm a strong black man that believes in who I am, and what I do. But my circle of friends consists of people from all backgrounds, and my mother taught me that. I thank God for my mother. I say her name, Deaconess Alice James, as many times as I can, because she taught me so many things in life. And if it had not been for her, I really don't know where I'd been. I had a talk with Vincent and Jared a few days ago, and I told them, I'm pretty transparent about it. Had it not been for my mother and the things she taught me, I strayed away from her for a little bit. However, I, at one point, should have been two places. And I told them that, and I've told this to people before. I should have been in jail or dead because I didn't adhere to what I was taught. But because of the God that I serve, He brought me back around to where I need to be. And now I understand my assignment. I understand my assignment very clearly.
Yeah.
So, any particular childhood memories that helped you establish who you are that you care to share that was it particularly meaningful for you of becoming what you just described?
As far as my strength, you mean, or as far as how I...
You described yourself as a strong black man, but whose friendship knows no bounds.
So, let me tell you about one specific instance when I was a young man. So, I really believe in being who I am and sticking to it. Once I commit to something, I commit to it. I had a friend that happened to be a white guy. His father was a coach of the Naval Academy basketball team. And some of the black friends, or so-called, and I say that very clearly, so-called black friends that I had in the neighborhood didn't necessarily like the fact that I had a white friend. I used to go to his house and listen to Beatles records because him and I were friends. And they beat me up pretty bad because of that. And from that point, I made a point that no one's going to tell me who I am, what friends to have, and how to live my life, except one person, and that was my mother. She was the only one that had the right to tell me how to live, what to do, how to do it, when to do it.
Yeah.
Anyone else, I decided I was going to be my own man and do things the way I thought it was right. And I need to make this very clear. I am very serious about this. If I am right, I will always stick to it, always. If I feel that I'm wrong and I've done something wrong, I'm big enough and man enough to apologize about it, because that's who I am. I make no apologies about who I am and the way I've grown. I just try to learn from the mistakes that I make. And we all going to make mistakes in life. That's how we grow. So that's who I am.
Yeah.
You've talked about atonement and repair.
Yes.
What does that look like to you for people who, the community of the Old Fourth Ward, or for you in particular?
For me, atonement and repair looks like this. You know, for those of you that may want to know what we're talking about, back in the 60s, the Old Fourth Ward was decimated, in my opinion, because of urban renewal. I call it urban removal because that's what had happened. We were removed from where we were living. But what it looks like to me, atonement and repair, is education of, first of all, we need the people, the city, county, state, whoever, need to recognize that they did do harm to the Old Fourth Ward. They need to apologize to those descendants that are still living. I mean, those descendants that are here and the ones that are still living. And there's a few of them that are still living. Because that pain lives with them every single day. It lives with me. I don't show it all the time. A lot of time when I talk about it, I get very emotional because it is part of my life and it's a part that hurt me. So recognizing that they did do harm to the community. The atonement part is, however, we can coordinate with the government to pay back to the citizens. And it doesn't necessarily have to be monetarily. It could be education. It could be financial literacy. It could be placing them back in an area. Of course, I don't think you'll ever be able to get the Fourth Ward back to where, but placing them in an area that they feel that is comfortable. And I don't know how that will work, to be honest with you. But some kind of way, the government and the descendants and the people that were harmed in the Old Fourth Ward need to get together and come up with a real solid plan on how to take care of what was done to them in the 60s. Because we have some of the Old Fourth Ward residents, some of them in their 90s, well, a couple of them I think in their 90s, if I'm not mistaken, that are still living, and they still hurt today. So that really needs to be taken care of.
Yeah. I think on a little bit of a lighter note, I can see how much you do light up when you talk about your mother. And like your mom, you entered the healthcare profession, right? You became a nurse. And when we spoke the other day, you talked about that being a point of pride for your brother. He was proud of you when you entered the healthcare profession. What is something you hope your family remembers you for?
I think more than, it's really not about me, to tell you the truth. But if they're going to remember anything about me, the one thing I want them to remember about me is that I care about them, I love them, and that anything and everything that I try to do in my latter years was to support them and to make things better for them ahead. You speak about my brother. When I leave here, I'm going by to visit him, by the way. when I speak about my brother and my mother, you know, family is central to me.
Yeah,
It really
I
is.
can tell.
Anyone that knows me or follow me on my Facebook page, I'm always posting something about my family because they mean everything to me. My life is just about done. You know, God only promised us 10, and for y'all that don't know that's 70 years. And He's given me 2 extra years so far. Now, I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
No
You're
time
gonna be here for a
soon.
long time.
I don't want to go anywhere anytime soon, but He has given me what He's promised me. And so I want to just make sure that everyone knows that my family means the world to me. My kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and they're scattered all over the country. So I get on the phone and talk to them whenever I can. We FaceTime and cut up. A lot of people that know me see a serious side of me a lot of time, but I can be kind of a jokester sometimes, especially with my kids and grandkids. Reese James, my brother, I love that man to death. He's a Marine, and he always give me a hard time about being in the Army, but I recall something about him when he was very young that made us even closer. He fell on a pipe and cut his throat and almost didn't make it. But because God decided that his assignment wasn't done, he's still with us today. But I'm very proud of who I am as far as a family man. And it always hasn't been good because I had some bumps in the road coming up with my family. This is my second, I've been married twice. The first one didn't work out, and that's a different story, but you know, I'm still the family man that I've always been. I love my kids. They will tell you unequivocally that I care about them. And so I'm very proud of that part of who I am.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I'm also proud of the military service that
So tell us a little bit about the military service. So why you joined, what you got out of it, and anything that was important to you coming out of being in the military, what you learned.
in the military. Okay, so I joined the military when I was coming out of high school. My first daughter, LaDonta, was born, and I was supposed to have a scholarship to Marquette University to play basketball, but Marquette was not going to pay child support for a daughter, and I felt so strongly about being responsible for my child that someone talked to me. I don't even recall who talked to me, but someone talked to me about the military and the benefits that it had. So I joined the military right out of high school, and I decided to go in the medical field because my mother was a nurse, and I had 2 aunts that were nurses, and I was really impressed with it. So I joined, and I went to medical school in San Antonio, Texas, and I ended up being, to make a long story short, because it's a lot to it, it really is. But to make a long story short, I ended up being in charge of an emergency room out in San Francisco, Presidio, Littmann Army Medical Center. I was in charge of the military emergency room out there, and that forged a path for me to do other things. While running the emergency room, I'm proud that I got to get my national certification as a paramedic. I drove ambulance, I did a lot of things in there, but that's one of the proudest moments in the military that I had in there. Running that emergency room and becoming a nationally certified paramedic.
Wow.
So
Incredible. Yeah, when we had our pre-discussion, you also talked about serving in the Gulf War. And when you returned home, kissing the ground.
Yes.
Can you share what was going on in your mind when you came home and you kissed the ground?
Well, because when I was in the Gulf War, I was very focused on taking care of the soldiers that I was charged to medically. And I saw some things over there in the Gulf War that I wouldn't want anyone to really experience. I saw how devastating it was to live in there in some regions of the Middle East, and I realized just how blessed I was to live in a country that we have the freedoms that we had. And a lot of people often talk about the United States this and the United States that and what they don't do and what they don't do, but I don't think they have a clue how blessed they are to live in a country. We have freedoms that some people will never be able to see in their lives. And some of the things that we can do here, if you were in those other countries, you would see a really bad outcome. I'm gonna make a case in point, just a very simple point. In some countries over in the Middle East, if you steal something, they cut off your dominant hand. Period. No question, no ands, ifs, or buts. They cut off your dominant hand. Now in America, if you steal something, you may have your day in court, and you may get probation, you may get a little time in jail or whatever. But the extremes of the countries is different. So when I came back to the United States after the Gulf War, I did. I got down and kissed the ground. Somebody said, "You kissed the dirty ground?" I said, "Brother, let me tell you, that ground is clean compared to where I come from." And I did, and I would do that over and over again, because as bad as some things might be in this country, and there are some things that's really not so well right now, this is a country that I want to be in.
Absolutely. So,
Not everyone gets a honorable discharge like you have, and I know you're proud of that. What did it take to walk that road with integrity?
A faith. When I was in the military, I was sort of one of these guys that I wanted to test the road. These guys doing this and these guys doing that, but I wanted to sort of see how things were. But I soon found out that in order to make it in the military, you have to be very disciplined. You have to be obedient. You have to really observe a lot. The military taught me one thing very well, is to observe. You may never know that I'm watching or seeing what you're doing, but I observe very well. And so to make it, I had to learn from my mistakes. I made some.
yeah.
I had to follow my leaders, because I had some leaders that were more experienced than I was. And I also had to take those experiences and apply them to my own life, so that I could be able to lead the soldiers that I was responsible for. Because I was responsible for some soldiers there. And I never wanted that to be on my conscience, that I didn't do my job and one of those soldiers that I was responsible for would lose their life. I never wanted that on. So I paid particular attention to how I carried myself and the things that I was supposed to do to make things right within my military career. And so I'm happy that I was able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm curious how this all works out, because you describe yourself as stubborn, and but you got to be disciplined. You got to take direction. How did that all work while you were serving?
I'm a Taurus. I'm a bull. I'm bullheaded, and also my mother is Alice, Deaconess Alice L.J. I told y'all need to understand, when you ask me anything about my mother, I'm gonna call her name as often, as many times as I can, because this lady is instrumental in who I am. But as far as how did all that work out, I just believe that my mother taught me that things are not going to always go the way you want, but you have to look at the big picture. Things, as far as my life is concerned, may have been not what I wanted them to be, but something she told me that I say a lot of times, and I try to tell people this all the time. Things may be very bad for you and I, but there's somebody somewhere in this world that's always much worse than you are. So take that as a grain of salt and build on that, and then you can sort of always change course if you need to. But you don't always have to be the same. I can be the nicest person in the world, and I really do strive to do that. But I can also be your worst enemy if you push me to that point. Because I'm human. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a bag of chips and all that, because I'm not. I'm just who I am, and I try to be as realistic and as honest as I can.
Yeah.
I can love you. I can look you straight in the eye and tell you that I love you and mean it from the bottom of my heart. But if you step on my toes, and I said, you stepped on my toes, can we do something about that? And you continue to step on my toes, then I can be a different person.
I don't want to see that side.
No, neither do I.
And you know what, Vince? I really don't want to see that side either. Because that's part of me, but that's not who I am.
Right.
It's in me. So my grandkids and my kids would tell you, a lot of times I didn't have to have hands-on discipline. My eyes did a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
If I turned and looked at you, and I looked at you for 3, 4, 5 seconds, they knew, we better stop doing what we're doing.
Whatever we do.
Because,
Yeah.
that's how, and I try to teach them from that, Say, you're going to make mistakes. And you didn't make a mistake this time, you're not going to do it again, are you? Because if you do it again, it's going to be a different outcome.
Yeah.
And that's how I try to look at life.
I've got one more question
Yeah.
before we get to the lightning round. We didn't talk about this ahead of time.
Okay.
I've known you for about a dozen years or so, and I've known throughout that time, it's obvious that the Caucus of African American Leaders, CAL, is so important to you. Can you discuss why it's so important to you?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to me because of the work that they do. They're about trying to be advocates for the community, make the community better than what it has been for us. And then also, my good friend, the Honorable Carl Snowden, who I've known for many years, more than 50 years, I watched him. And Carl, please forgive me if you see this. Carl is a month younger than I am. Matter of fact, he just had a birthday. Happy birthday, bro. But I really respect this man and the things that he's done. I've watched him. While I was in the military, he was doing his thing in government. He was the civil rights advocate or civil rights person for the Attorney General's office. And so I've seen some of the things he do. One of the things that impressed me about him is how he teaches us about our history. Mm-hmm. This man's a walking history book. Mm-hmm. And so I try to learn from him. And as I learn from him, I try to work that into my part as a member of the Caucus of African American Leaders. And trust me, the Caucus of African American Leaders is an organization that really means well for the community, to the point that we even got the Caucus of African American Leaders on Maryland's Eastern Shore started about 3 years ago, which I'm a proud co-convener of. Even though I live on the Western Shore, I'm a co-convener of the Caucus of African American Leaders on the Eastern Shore. And so we try to collaborate on things, any and everything that's going to make the community better, whether that's education, whether that's injustice in the criminal justice system, whether that's helping someone that has a problem with police accountability, whatever it is, we try to get involved with to make it better. And all the time it doesn't happen, but we do the best that we can in that organization. And I'm really proud of the caucus, I really am.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Good. All right. So we're going to transition to our lightning round. The intention is that it's supposed to be a question, and you have a response that first comes to your mind. We're not always great about it because we are asking some kind of in-depth questions, so we'll see how good we are with this
The
one.
lightning round.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So the first question is, what is a prayer that you often return to?
The prayer that I often return to is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 that I live with. That is simply this: trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not into your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge God, because he shall direct your path. You're not going to understand everything, but if you just trust him, he will guide you.
I think I might know the answer to this question, but we'll let you say it anyway. Who inspired you to serve your community?
Who inspired me to serve my mother?
I had a feeling that was going to be the
My
answer.
mother.
Yeah.
What's your go-to comfort food after a long day?
Truthfully,
Truthfully.
my comfort food, I would have to say chicken wings.
Okay.
And if it's not chicken wings, it's Maryland blue crabs.
All right. Is there a particular flavor of chicken wings, or do you just like them plain?
No.
A type of sauce?
I like all of them, but I like buffalo wings.
Okay, all right.
One word that describes the old Fourth Ward.
Community.
Community.
That's one of Vincent's favorite words in
It
the
is.
world.
What's that?
Community. That's his favorite word.
And what's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received was from my mother, is to be yourself, be true to yourself, and do what you're supposed to do.
Good stuff.
Deaconess Alice James was her name.
Elder Charles, thank you so much for being our guest. We really enjoyed talking with you, learning a little bit more. Would you like we'd like to give you this opportunity if there's anything else that you'd like to share with the audience.
Well, you know what? What time is it?
11:35,
Oh,
12:35.
well, we got plenty of time then. So I just want to say that I want to thank Vincent and Jared for inviting me here to talk on this podcast. I really am a person that believes in doing what's right. I'm also a person that when I make a commitment and I stick to it. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, what anyone else feels, or how they want to change things. When I make a commitment, I make commitment. And this is not a plug for anyone. This is just the truth. And so if you think that I'm making a plug for somebody, then take it and run with it. It doesn't matter. But I met this guy years ago, but about 18, 19 months ago or so, this young man came to me and asked me about his career and where he was planning on going. The guy right to my right, Jared Littmann. And so I have friends all throughout the city of Annapolis. And so I can honestly say this, that I trust Jared, I believe in Jared, and I've always been a person to stick to my commitment. And when he asked me how I felt about it, I'm not a voting resident of the city of Annapolis, so I can't vote for any candidate. But to tell you the truth, I support Jared Littmann because I've watched him, I've seen the work that he's done. I've been watching him very closely the past month and a half to 2 months. And I see the places he goes. I see the things he do. So I appreciate him and I thank him for what he's doing. And I wish you the very best.
Well, thank you so much, Elder Charles. I greatly appreciate that. I've enjoyed our friendship, and I greatly appreciate your endorsement and support.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you so much.
As far as Vincent is concerned, well, that's another story. We've known each other for a short period of time, but I've gotten to know him through the caucus and the meetings that we've had with the county exec. And I like the community work that he's done. He's another person that is all over this county and everywhere else. And so I appreciate the work that you do. And, you know, as someone says, you know, all of us can't do everything. None of us can do everything. Life just not like that.
Yeah.
But all of us can do something. So with Vince doing something and Jared doing something and Charles James doing something, you know, we really can make our community better. The key to it is that we all need to get involved in it. Mm-hmm. I will say this over and over again. Don't come up to me complaining about what's being done or what's not being done if you're not helping to be part of the solution. We all need to be a part of the solution because I just want to make where I live in the community, in this city, in this county, in the country, to be honest with you, a better place than what I was born into. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel very strongly about that because when I'm gone, my grandchildren are going to be here and your children and grandchildren are going to be here, and we just want a better place for them. So if you're out there listening, here's my challenge to you. Get involved. It doesn't have to be anything grand or you don't have to have any specific talents, but whatever you can give to your community to make it better, whether it's suggestions, whether helping out at a community meeting, whatever, get involved and help. And that way, as a unit, we all can make things better.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Yeah, we can all agree to that. Thank you, Elder Charles.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Charles. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you
Pleasure.
for having me.
Yep.
Pleasure.
All right.
Community Scoop is brought to you by Naptown Scoop, keeping you connected to what's happening to you in your own backyard.